Did you know that prostitution in the Russian Empire of the 19th century was quite common and even frequent? Due to the fact that many girls and women experienced material and financial difficulties, they were forced to take desperate steps. It even came to the point that potential priestesses of love were lured into a brothel. This was the name of the institution where night butterflies were prepared for the upcoming work, trained as well as provided all the necessary conditions and amenities. All would be nothing, but the fairer sex risked a lot, especially their own health. This is quite obvious. The medicine of the century before last was not as developed as the modern one. For example, most prostitutes at that time had an incurable disease, syphilis. In the end, almost every woman met the same fate. Night butterfly fell into the slums, where the risk of survival in unrealistic conditions tended to zero. So what did prostitutes do in the 19th century on the territory of the Russian Empire? To answer this question, it is necessary to consider in more detail one day in the life of a night butterfly. In this video, you will learn almost everything, from getting a potential victim into a brothel to her ultimate fate. So we strongly recommend reading the material very carefully and to the very end. Before we go directly to the life and fate of prostitutes, it is necessary to pay attention to another thing. In the 19th century, ladies with reduced social responsibility were divided into two categories: camellias and tolerant. The first category included women who dressed in lavish outfits. They always had an eye for fashion. This is exactly the same Jane Doe, which we have already mentioned, belongs to the camellias. Accordingly, such kept women chose richer men and high social status. To serve a camellia, it was necessary to seriously splurge. Expenses for such ladies were large. Tolerant women were women who obeyed procuresses. The latter insinuated to potential clients that before them young ladies who lacked love and affection. Men, in addition to satisfying their initial needs, counted on the spiritual component. The main difference between tolerantes and camellias is that the latter had more opportunities and were considered freer. Finally, we come to the most important thing: the life of a night butterfly in the province or another large city. Let's answer the most important question. What prompted the lady to take such a desperate step? Here, everything is very simple. A young girl or a fairly mature woman comes to the city. She expects that her life and future fate here will be more than prosperous. However, the situation is quite different. In the life of the lady meets a gentleman who promises her not just love. He is ready to provide her with everything she needs. In the end, everything comes out the other way around. At night after making love, the man leaves her and throws her out of the door. And even without money. Naturally, such ladies find themselves in a difficult situation. It is necessary to think as soon as possible about the upcoming work. No, not prostitution. What women did in most cases, they bought an inexpensive newspaper with an advertisement about employment services. Or somewhere on the streets of cities they saw similar ads. And then the potential victims fell for the bait. A job offer as a maid, barmaid or seamstress with high pay. The women went to the address and then the most unexpected thing happened. It changed a man's fate once and for all. Houses of tolerance, what it is and who lived in it. It is also important that the future ladies of easy behavior at first did not understand where they came. And in fact, in this way, women were recruited, which was very welcome in the 19th century. And this is not without reason. For historical reference, during the reign of Emperor Nicholas, I issued a special decree. According to it, prostitution was henceforth considered legalized. To a quite natural and logical question, why, we answer. In this way, the population of the country fought the incurable disease, syphilis. This insidious disease was transferred to prostitutes. Let's return to the House of Tolerance. It also represented a brothel or brothel house. These terms can be considered synonymous. A lady who entered such an establishment for the first time paid attention to the key details. luxurious furniture, a huge hall, Persian carpets, a crystal chandelier, stuffed animals. And then the first acquaintance with the owner of the brothel began. Can you imagine how a woman of this status influenced a future prostitute psychologically? First, she would feed the new guest properly. Then she would assure him that there was indeed work here. And after about a month, the worker could save enough money to start her life from scratch. The ladies, unfortunately, agreed unconditionally. They acted not with common sense, but with emotion. As the saying goes, free cheese is only in the mousetrap. The brothel was mostly inhabited by women from the lowest social status. They were run by bandera women. In the evening, guests came here, officials, bankers, officers. They would get close to the night butterflies. First a feast, then evening dances, and as night fell, bed. That's how the ladies became prostitutes. Prostitutes were divided into three types: street, blank, and ticketed. The street ones carried out their activities outside the establishment. Blank acted independently and without the support of their companions. But the latter had a so-called yellow ticket, where all the rules of the new profession were prescribed. This ticket received its name for the fact that it was made of paper of the lowest grade and quality, which, by the way, yellowed over time. The daily routine of a prostitute in a brothel. The first thing a ticketed prostitute had to do, let's take her as an example, was to give her passport to the appropriate official and in return receive a yellow ticket. This was the one that certified the identity of the prostitute and also contained the general rules. For example, the rules stated that once a week, a girl had to undergo a medical examination by a doctor. The latter just revealed or denied signs of syphilis. It was also forbidden to leave the brothel in order to move freely around the city. Many night butterflies found it difficult to adapt to the new conditions of their work. When a lady received a yellow ticket, she received instructions on how to dress, where to keep her money and savings, and what to do in her free time. At night, as a rule, they worked. Then by morning, they would return to the brothel. They slept until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. After that, we cleaned ourselves up, baths and toilets. Then we'd go to lunch. As for entertainment, the night butterflies had every right to play musical instruments, guitar or mandolin, and read literature. Of the books, mostly preferred poetry. Finally, they went out for a shift. Further, already according to the known scenario. In general, routine work, but also paid well. For 2 shifts, ladies of easy behaviour could earn as much as earned at that time seamstresses for a month with a 12-hour work schedule. The dress code of prostitutes consisted of negligées, stockings, deep necklines, cleavage on outer clothing, i.e., everything that indicated social status. And this was noticed by both potential clients and ordinary passers-by. You cannot even imagine how night butterflies were afraid of getting syphilis. After all, in such a case, they, in fact, dropped out of the brothel, first hospital beds and then other, cheaper establishments. These were the places where women lived out their last days. These places were the slums. Compared to the brothels, they were a nightmare. Unsanitary conditions, filth, the lowest strata of society. That's what awaited prostitutes who left the brothel. In the slums, ladies began to abuse alcohol, often sleep-deprived. All these conditions destroyed a person not only externally, but also internally. There are statistics. At the end of the 19th century, 50% of prostitutes had syphilis. 73% of the total number of prostitutes worked in this sphere for 5 years, and 5% managed to work for 15 years. Let's answer the most exciting question. Could a priestess of love return her passport and leave the brothel? Yes, the rules of the yellow ticket allowed it. Ladies of easy behaviour did it for 2 main reasons: to start life with a clean slate or at the request of a guardian. The latter could be any person interested in the welfare of a woman. However, few managed to readapt to normal human conditions and return to full-fledged society.